the idea that technology has accelerated the change between sort of older and younger generations, that as, say, previously, like cultural touchstones would have lasted for 10, 15, 20 years, that tech is basically moving so fast that those who are born 5 years later are no longer have yet those same cultural touchstones. Like, for example, things have gone just in the 10 years since I was in school from I remember the Facebook thing, then came Twitter, came Instagram, came Vine, came I can't even remember. There's definitely a few more in there. And then TikTok is the latest one, basically. And it evolved from music.ly or Musical.ly, or basically the things that define, or culturally at least, are moving a lot faster. And that combined with the kind of seeming, I don't know, acceleration of madness that we seem to be going through at the minute with the world, feels like it might be changing how quickly the generations are sort of evolving. Do you think that it's changing what can be defined as a generation? And do you think that it's accelerating and sort of increasing the differences between each next one?
Yeah, again, really good point. And it relates to like a big discussion that Carl Mannheim and others had about generations back in the early 20th century, where they were, feeling that they were going through a great acceleration themselves. And they talked quite a lot about what does this mean for generational formation, because we've got this faster. And Mannheim, basically concluded what you had there, is that the faster technology changes, the more, the quicker that generations will be formed, and the shorter the gaps between these generations. He was talking about technology, not in the way that we were, but he was talking about it in terms of industrialization. And it was kind of, big economic things about moving to cities and working in industry and those types of things, where you can see very strongly why it would have big generational formation impacts, because the old skills that the older generation kind of were passing down to younger generation, which was a key bit of generational connection, were no longer relevant, and young people could actually just ignore older people. And I wrote a chapter on this in the book on technology, and it's what I concluded was that actually technology is really important to us now, but the platform that you're on and the emergence of TikTok versus other things is not going to be as determinant as these big economic changes and big social changes. And it's kind of because you can see it throughout history recent history of generation naming, that every new innovation, it's a kind of moral panic that you see with every new innovation, that this is going to change the younger generation utterly, to make them utterly different from previous generations, and almost always for the worse rather than for the better. So you've got lots of headlines in history about how dime novels were creating a generation of sociopaths in the US because of their violent content, and then obviously had similar sort of thing about video games in the US and UK when they came through, and then that kind of feeds through into naming of generations. So there's a lot, when you look at all the sort of failed attempts at naming generations, there are a lot of them that are technology driven. So the Nintendo generation was one that was talked about for a while. And it's kind of, the point is, I suppose, that yes, speed is accelerating, but these individual platforms and things that we use are still small in our lives. And we will look back on the idea that there's going to be a TikTok generation with the same sort of, that was foolish, as we do on why on earth would there be a Nintendo generation that's meaningful when you've got all these massive forces of a changing economy, changing home ownership, changing politics and culture more broadly, pandemics and wars and all of those other things. So that was that's where I ended up, is yes, absolutely, pace of change is really important. Technology is an important part of that, but individual platforms and what you're actually doing on these types of things is not determining a life course for generations.
Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the podcast. Don't forget our sponsor, ExpressVPN, and my book, Brexit, the Establishment Civil War, can both be found in the links in the description below. And also, please like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. It's the best way to help us grow. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Screw the hedge funds.
You can make as many rules as you want, but if there's no teeth behind them, what's the point?
Well, like Citadel is potentially just gone in a few months. It feels like financial institutions, that they are all laughing at us by buying GME. Screw the hedge funds. Like, I will lose my entire investment if it brings them down.
Why on earth, last May, could you buy the entire company for $200 million?
What's been happening on Reddit and in social media and in the marketplace has never been seen before.
I argue that nothing is off the table. There is nothing off the table when dealing with the volumes of money in something as big as the United States stock market.
The hedge funds have clearly underestimated a group of people raised on Friday night World of Warcraft raids.
Dark pools, they're another mechanism to manipulate and cheat. Mainstream journalists don't say these things for a number of reasons. One is their sources are the people that I'm talking about, and so they can't call somebody a crook.
Superstonk and the other communities that have emerged are a hive mind, the likes of which we have never seen before. It's madness and brilliance, insanity and genius all rolled into one. It's very possible that Citadel will be gone in a few months. And not just Citadel, but the entire financial system has the potential to come crashing down. These crooks continue to gamble recklessly with the world economy, and this could be the moment that they finally get their justice.